The surf breaks white against black volcanic sand. It is 8:44 in the morning on June 15, 1944, and First Lieutenant Frank Toshofsky knows that, in exactly 3 minutes, he will either be dead or he will become something the Marine Corps has never seen before. He crouches in the Higgins boat as it pitches through the swells 300 yards from Saipan's southern beaches. Behind him, 40 men check their weapons with the practiced efficiency of men who have killed before, who expect to kill again, who have made a kind of peace with the mathematics of their own mortality, the air tastes of salt and diesel fuel, and something else. Something metallic that Toshofsky recognizes from his nightmares, the smell of what is coming. Japanese artillery shells begin falling among the assault waves. Geysers of white water erupt where boats were moments before. Through the spray and smoke, Toshofsky can see the island rising from the sea like a fortress. Mount Tapasho's 1,500-foot peak, dominating the interior. Observation posts on its slopes, tracking every American vessel, every landing craft, calculating angles and distances with the cold precision of men who have registered every inch of these beaches for exactly this moment. 30,000 Japanese soldiers wait on that island. 30,000 men who have been told that Saipan is Japanese soil, not occupied territory, that surrender is unthinkable, that death is preferable to the shame of capture. They have built their defenses from Mont's concrete pillboxes with interlocking fields of fire, underground bunkers connected by tunnels, artillery positions hidden in caves, machine gun nests camouflaged so perfectly that a man could walk within 10 feet and never see the muzzle that would kill him. Against this, the Marine Corps is sending Toshofsky and his 40 thieves. That is what the other Marines call them. The 40 thieves, because Toshofsky recruited them from Briggs and punishment details, because they steal everything that is not nailed down, and some things that are, because they fight dirty and break rules and think for themselves in ways that make senior officers nervous. The Marine Corps handbook says elite units require discipline and obedience. Toshofsky has built his unit on the opposite principle. He has collected the men that the Marine Corps calls troublemakers and criminals, the ones who win fights that send them to the brig, the ones with arrest records for assault and theft and insubordination, and he has taught them to kill silently and move through enemy territory like ghosts and survive in situations where by-the-book Marines would die following orders. The ramp drops, water surges into the boat, chest high and shockingly cold despite the tropical heat. Toshofsky moves forward and the 40 men follow him into the surf, into the machine gun fire that kicks up spray in neat lines across the water, into the mortar that are already falling among the assault waves, turning men into red mist and screaming in body parts that float in the foam. He reaches the beach at 8:47. Japanese fire is coming from positions the intelligence maps said did not exist. Marines are dying at the seawall, pinned down by enfilading fire from bunkers that should not be there, should not exist, but do, because intelligence is always incomplete, and war is always worse than the briefings suggest. Toshofsky does not stop at the seawall. His orders are different from everyone else's. While other Marine units dig in and wait for armor support and artillery, while officers call in naval gunfire and reorganize their scattered platoons, Toshofsky and the 40 thieves move inland. They have 300 yards of open ground to cross under fire, and they cross it in 6 minutes, moving fast and low, using shell craters for cover, not returning fire because shooting back would slow them down, and they have farther to go than any other unit on this beach. By 9:30, they are alone in enemy territory. Behind them, thousands of Marines are fighting for every yard of sand. Ahead of them, the jungle rises dark and impenetrable, and somewhere in that green hell are 30,000 Japanese soldiers, who would very much like to kill them. This is what the 40 thieves were created for. This moment, this mission. Marine Corps planners have calculated that scout sniper casualties in the Pacific Theater average 73%. Almost 3 out of every 4 men who do what Toshofsky's platoon does will die doing it. The mathematics are unforgiving, but the need is absolute. The Battle of Tarawa 7 months earlier killed 94 Marines in 76 hours because American commanders did not know where Japanese fortifications were, did not understand the enemy's defensive system, sent waves of men charging into kill zones that better intelligence could have identified and destroyed from the sea. Colonel James Roosevelt, Risley of the 6th Marine Regiment, watched men die at Tarawa and understood that the Marine Corps was fighting blind. He requested permission to form a specialized scout sniper platoon that could operate behind enemy lines, map Japanese positions, call in coordinates for naval gunfire, and survive alone for days without support. The Marine Corps approved his request with the bureaucratic enthusiasm of men who did not expect the experiment to work, but saw no harm in trying. Risley gave the mission to Toshofsky, who was 29 years old and from New Brighton, Pennsylvania, and who understood something about men that the Marine Corps training manuals did not teach. He understood that the skills required for deep reconnaissance, independent thinking, improvisation, controlled aggression, the ability to kill quickly and without remorse were not the skills that made good garrison Marines. He needed men who broke rules instinctively, who fought dirty without being taught, who had proven they could survive violent encounters on their own terms. He found them in the brigs, For 2 months at Camp Tarawa, in Hawaii, Tchaikovsky collected the troublemakers. When 2 Marines got into a fight, he wanted the winner. When a man was on punishment detail for theft, he asked what the man had stolen and how he had avoided getting caught. When a Marine faced court-martial for insubordination, Tchaikovsky interviewed him personally to determine whether the insubordination came from stupidity or from the dangerous intelligence of a man who understood that following orders was sometimes slower than doing what needed to be done. He assembled 42 men. The youngest was 17 and lied about his age to enlist. The oldest was 34 and had a criminal record in 3 states. One had been a professional boxer in Chicago. Another had worked as an enforcer for a gangster. Several had been arrested for assault before the war, had chosen military service over prison, and then found that military discipline suited them poorly. The Marine Corps considered these men liabilities. Tchaikovsky considered them assets. He gave them a choice: train for his platoon, or return to the brig. Every man chose training. What Tchaikovsky taught them at Camp Tarawa was not in any Marine Corps manual. He taught them to kill with knives and bare hands, to approach a sentry from behind and break his neck without making sound. He taught them to move through jungle terrain without disturbing vegetation, to read the landscape for signs of enemy activity, to interpret Japanese maps and documents. He taught them to shoot M1903 Springfield rifles fitted with 8-power unertl scopes, to hit man-sized targets at 600 yards, to calculate for wind and elevation and the heartbeat that makes the rifle move in your hands. He taught them to call in naval gunfire, to read coordinates from maps, to use radio equipment that the average Marine never touched, and he taught them to steal. The Marine Corps in 1944 was the poorest equipped branch of the American military. Marines received hand-me-down weapons from World War I, obsolete equipment that other services had discarded, rations that were barely adequate. To survive, Marines stole from better supplied Army and Navy units. Tchaikovsky's men excelled at this. They raided Army supply depots for food, Navy warehouses for equipment, stole jeeps and trucks and anything else that improved their chances of staying alive. Other Marines in the 6th Regiment began calling them the 40 Thieves. The name fit. They wore it like a badge of honor. By June 1944, training was complete. The men knew how to fight and hide and kill without noise. They had memorized Japanese fortification patterns, studied aerial photographs of Saipan until they could navigate the island in their sleep. They understood their mission with the clarity that comes from knowing you are probably going to die, doing it but choosing to do it anyway because the alternative in a brig while other men fight somehow. Worse. Now they are in the jungle. And the jungle is not like the training areas at Camp Tarawa. It is hotter, denser, more alien. Vines hang from trees like cables. The undergrowth is thick enough that a man could pass within 5 feet and never be seen. The air is thick with humidity and the smell of rotting vegetation, and something else. Something worse. The smell of death that Tchaikovsky recognizes from the sweet, corrupt smell of bodies decomposing in tropical heat. They move in single file, 50 yards apart, maintaining visual contact through hand signals. Standard Marine tactics call for units to stay together, to advance in formation with flankers and rearguard. Tchaikovsky's orders are different. His platoon operates independently. They report to regimental headquarters, but make their own tactical decisions. No other Marine unit on Saipan has that authority. It is a calculated risk by Colonel Risley, who understands that men, operating alone behind enemy lines, cannot wait for orders from officers who do not know the ground, cannot understand the situation, cannot make decisions fast enough to keep the men alive. At 10:15, Sergeant Bill Carnival spots the first Japanese position. He raises his fist, the signal to halt, and the platoon freezes. Through the jungle ahead, partially concealed by vegetation and camouflage netting, a concrete pillbox sits in the side of a ridge like a tumor. Its firing slit points down into a valley where the 2nd Marine Division will advance this afternoon. Inside that pillbox, invisible from the beach, impossible to spot from aerial reconnaissance, is a Type 92 heavy machine gun with a crew of 7 and enough ammunition to kill hundreds of Marines. Tchaikovsky studies the position through binoculars. The pillbox has interlocking fields of fire with 2 other positions he can see farther along the ridge. The Japanese have placed them perfectly. Any Marine unit advancing through that valley will be caught in crossfire from 3 directions. Men will die before they understand where the shooting is coming from. The attack will stall. More Marines will come forward and more will die. By the end of the day, that valley might cost 100 casualties. Maybe more. He makes his decision in 30 seconds. Destroying the pillbox will reveal the 40 Thieves' position. Will alert the Japanese that American scouts have penetrated this far inland. Will compromise the reconnaissance mission they are supposed to be conducting. But 100 Marine lives are worth more than operational security. Private Marvin Strombo moves forward with the bazooka. He positions himself 80 yards from the pillbox, angles the tube for a direct shot at the firing slit, and waits for Tchaikovsky's signal. The signal comes. Strombo fires. The rocket leaves the tube with a sound like canvas tearing, crosses the 80 yards in less than 2 seconds, enters the firing slit, and detonates inside the pillbox. The explosion is muffled, almost anticlimactic from outside. Inside, the shaped charge has created a jet of superheated metal that penetrates armor and flesh with equal ease. The 7-man crew dies instantly, before the smoke clears. The 40 thieves have already moved 300 yards deeper into the jungle. They leave no trace except the destroyed pulp. When 2nd Marine Division units advance through that valley 4 hours later, they encounter no machine gun fire from the ridge. They do not know why. They do not know that 40 criminals from the brig just saved their lives. By noon, Tchaikovsky has mapped 17 Japanese positions, 8 machine gun nests, 4 mortar pits, 3 artillery observation posts, 2 ammunition storage areas. He radios the coordinates to regimental headquarters using encoded transmissions. Within 20 minutes, naval gunfire from destroyers offshore begins hitting the targets. 5-inch shells rain down on positions the Japanese thought were hidden, thought were safe. Bunkers collapse. Ammunition dumps explode. Artillery pieces are blown apart. And the Japanese do not understand how the Americans know where they are. Do not realize that somewhere in the jungle, 40 Marines are watching them die. This is the mission. Find the enemy. Mark them for destruction. Move on before anyone realizes you were there. The platoon advances to miles inland by early afternoon, well ahead of any other American unit. They are moving through terrain the Marines will not reach for 3 more days. Every 100 yards reveals new Japanese positions. The island is more heavily fortified than intelligence estimated. Tchaikovsky counts over 200 enemy soldiers in one valley alone, dug into positions that would require days of frontal assault to capture. But with accurate coordinates, naval gunfire can destroy those positions in minutes. The 40 thieves are changing how the Marine Corps fights. They are proving that small units with good intelligence can accomplish more than entire battalions attacking blindly. This is the lesson that will eventually create Navy SEALs and Marine Force reconnaissance. Though no one on Saipan in June 1944 knows that yet, they only know that the radio transmissions from Tchaikovsky's platoon are providing better intelligence than any other source. The coordinates are accurate, the targets are high, and somehow, impossibly, the platoon is surviving behind enemy lines. At 3:40 in the afternoon, everything changes. They find the tanks in a grove north of Karan Kanoa, 37, Type 97 medium tanks, sitting under camouflage netting in a staging area. The tanks are fueled and armed, their crews sleeping nearby in dugouts, waiting for nightfall. Marine intelligence estimated the Japanese possessed maybe a dozen tanks on Saipan. The 40 thieves have just found 3 times that number in one location. Tchaikovsky understands immediately what he is looking at. This is not a defensive position. This is an assault force. Japanese doctrine calls for massed tank attacks at night when American naval gunfire is less effective. If these 37 tanks attack the beach after dark, they can break through Marine lines, reach the vulnerable supply areas, destroy ammunition dumps and command posts. The entire American invasion could collapse in a single night. He radios the coordinates immediately. The response from headquarters comes back in 8 minutes. Naval gunfire already engaged, supporting Marine units pinned down near the beach. Airstrikes committed to other targets. Artillery still being unloaded from ships, no assets available to hit the tank battalion for at least 4 hours. By then it will be dark, and the tanks will have moved. Tchaikovsky looks at the 37 tanks, and then at his men, and makes a calculation that will define everything that happens next. His platoon carries 6 rounds per bazooka, 36 rockets total, 37 tanks. The mathematics are almost perfect. He knows what he is about to do violates every tactical principle the Marine Corps teaches. A 40-man unit does not attack a tank battalion, but he has not recruited men who follow principles. He has recruited men who fight dirty and survive. At 4:15, he gives the order. The 40 thieves will attack the tank battalion themselves. If they succeed, they will prevent a disaster at the beach. If they fail, 40 men will die, and no one will ever know what happened to them in that jungle grove. But failure is not something Tchaikovsky allows himself to think about anymore. Failure is what happens to Marines who wait for orders, who follow doctrine, who do not adapt. The 40 thieves have built themselves on the opposite principle. They adapt faster than the enemy can respond. They strike before anyone realizes they are there. They disappear before the counterattack comes. Private Strombo checks his bazooka and counts his rockets. 6 shots to kill 6 tanks. Then it will come down to close combat with the crews. He has killed men before. He will kill more today. This is what he was recruited for. This is what the brig prepared him for. Though he did not know it at the time. Tchaikovsky positions his 6 bazooka teams in a semicircle around the tank staging area, spacing them 40 yards apart to maximize coverage. Each team consists of a shooter and a loader. The plan is simple in the way that plans are simple when there is no good alternative. Hit as many tanks as possible in the first 30 seconds, then withdraw into the jungle before Japanese infantry can respond. The Marines know they will not destroy all 37 tanks, but even disabling 10 or 15 will significantly reduce the threat to the beachhead. Teams move into position at 4:25, and then something happens that changes everything. The tanks start their engines. The sound of 37 diesel engines roaring to life simultaneously echoes through the jungle like thunder. Japanese tank crews emerge from their dugouts and climb onto their vehicles. Officers shout orders. Infantry units begin forming up around the tanks. This is not a repositioning movement. This is preparation for attack. Tchaikovsky checks his watch. 4:28. Sunset is at 7:12. The Japanese are preparing for a dusk assault. Earlier than Marine intelligence predicted, the entire enemy force is now alert and organizing for combat. The window for surprise attack has closed. He makes a new decision. The platoon will shadow the tank battalion and report its movements. Attacking now will accomplish nothing except getting his men killed. But tracking the tanks and providing real-time coordinates will allow Marine units at the beach to prepare defenses. He radios headquarters with updated information. Enemy tank battalion mobilizing for attack. Estimated time of arrival at American lines between 1900 and 2000 hours. The response comes immediately. Maintain observation. Do not engage. Continue reporting. The tank battalion begins moving at 5:07. They advance in 2 columns along parallel routes toward the coast. Japanese infantry units move alongside, approximately 1,000 soldiers total. This is a major assault, not a probing attack. The Japanese intend to break through Marine lines and reach the beaches before nightfall. If they succeed, they can destroy supply dumps, artillery positions, command posts. The entire American invasion could collapse in a single evening. The 40 thieves follow the enemy formation, staying 200 yards to the flank, using jungle cover for concealment. Every 10 minutes, Tchaikovsky radios updated coordinates showing the enemy's position and direction of movement. At the beach, Marine units begin repositioning. Bazookas are distributed to frontline units. Sherman tanks from the 2nd Marine Tank Battalion move forward. Artillery batteries adjust their aim points. The entire 2nd Marine Division prepares to receive a massed tank attack at 6:15. Approximately 1 mile from the beach, the Japanese formation halts. Officers gather for a conference. Through binoculars from 300 yards away, Tchaikovsky watches them argue. One officer points toward the coast. Another gestures north. A third unrolls a map. The conference lasts 11 minutes. Then the officers return to their units and the formation changes direction. Instead of continuing straight toward the beach, the tanks turn north. The maneuver surprises Tchaikovsky. Marine intelligence maps show no valuable targets in that direction, but the Japanese clearly have a specific objective. The formation advances another mile north, then turns west again toward the coast. By 7:05, as the sun touches the horizon, Tchaikovsky understands their plan. The Japanese are not attacking the main beach. They are targeting the gap between the 2nd Marine Division and 4th Marine Division. A successful breakthrough there will split the American forces in half. He radios the warning. But the Japanese have chosen their timing perfectly. Dusk is falling. Radio communication becomes difficult as Marine units shift frequencies for night operations. Artillery batteries are in the middle of ammunition resupply. Sherman tanks are refueling. The gap between divisions is defended by just 2 Marine companies, approximately 340 men against 37 tanks and 1,000 Japanese infantry. At 7:23, the Japanese attack begins. The 40 thieves watch from elevated ground as enemy tanks roll forward through the twilight. Marine defensive positions erupt with bazooka fire. The first 3 Japanese tanks explode in flames, but 34 more keep coming. Japanese infantry charge behind the tanks, screaming and firing. Marines fall back from their initial positions. The breakthrough is succeeding. Within 15 minutes, enemy tanks will reach the beach, and then Tchaikovsky sees something that changes everything again. One Japanese tank has separated from the main formation. It is heading directly toward the 6th Marine Regiment's command post, where Colonel Risley is coordinating the entire divisional response. The Type 97 tank moves through the darkness at 15 miles per hour. Following a ravine that leads directly to the command post location, the Japanese tank commander has identified a weakness in Marine defenses, a 200-yard gap where jungle terrain prevents easy positioning of anti-tank weapons. If the tank reaches the command post, it can destroy radio equipment, kill senior officers, paralyze the entire regimental response. Colonel Risley and his staff are 400 yards away. Completely unaware of the approaching threat, Tchaikovsky has maybe 3 minutes to act. He grabs Private Herbert Hadas, the best bazooka shooter in the platoon. Hadas destroyed 6 targets during training without missing a single shot. But training targets do not move, do not shoot back, do not have armor plating designed to deflect rockets. The Type 97's frontal armor is 50 millimeters thick. Hadas needs a perfect side shot to guarantee penetration. They move down the slope at a dead run, racing to intercept the tank. They reach a position 30 yards from the tank's projected path at 7:31. Hadas drops prone and aims the bazooka. The tank emerges from the ravine 20 seconds later, turret rotating, searching for targets. The commander stands in the open hatch, scanning the darkness with binoculars. Hadas waits. A moving tank is harder to hit than a stationary one. The tank continues forward. 25 yards, 20 yards, 15 yards. Then it stops. The engine idles. The commander is checking his map, trying to confirm his position. Hadas fires at 7:32. The rocket hits the tank's left side just below the turret ring, exactly where the armor is thinnest. The shaped charge penetrates and detonates inside the crew compartment. All 4 crew members die instantly. The tank's ammunition cooks off 6 seconds later. The entire vehicle erupts in flames. The fireball lights up the jungle for 300 yards. Japanese infantry advancing nearby see the explosion and assume they have encountered a major Marine defensive position. They redirect their assault away from the command post toward what they think is a larger threat. The bazooka shot has accomplished more than destroying one tank. It has inadvertently misdirected an entire Japanese infantry battalion away from the most vulnerable point in Marine defenses. The command post remains secure. Colonel Risley continues coordinating the divisional response without interruption. But the bazooka's muzzle flash has revealed the 40 Thieves' position to every Japanese soldier within 500 yards. Enemy machine gun fire begins raking the area. Mortar rounds start falling. The platoon has to withdraw immediately or risk being overrun. What follows is a nightmare of movement through jungle and darkness while under fire. Standard procedure calls for units to stay together, but jungle terrain and enemy fire make that impossible. The platoon splits into small teams, moving independently toward predetermined rally points. Japanese patrols are everywhere, searching for the Marines who destroyed their tank. Private Strombo's team encounters a Japanese patrol at 8:05, 7 enemy soldiers moving through the jungle with flashlights. Strombo and 3 other Marines lie motionless in undergrowth as the patrol passes within 10 feet. One Japanese soldier stops and looks directly at where Strombo is hiding. The Marine holds his breath. The Japanese soldier stands there for 43 seconds, staring into the darkness. Finally, he moves on. By 9 o'clock, approximately half the 40 Thieves have reached the primary rally point. Tchaikovsky counts 23 men. 17 are missing. They could be dead, captured, or simply lost in the darkness. Standard procedure calls for units to wait at rally points for up to 2 hours. But the location is too close to Japanese positions. Enemy patrols are actively searching the area. Tchaikovsky makes the decision to move the assembled group back to Marine lines and send rescue teams at dawn to search for the missing men. They cross into friendly territory at 9:41. 23 men have made it back. 17 are still out there somewhere in the dark. The Japanese tank attack continues through the night. By dawn, Marine bazookas and Sherman tanks and artillery fire have destroyed 27 of the 37 enemy tanks. The attack has failed, but it has cost the Marines heavily. The 2nd Battalion, 6th Marines, reports 78 casualties. Company F has 19 killed or wounded. At first light, Tchaikovsky assembles search teams. Each team consists of 4 men with orders to locate the missing 17 Marines and return by noon. They find the first body at 7:05, Private Donald Evans, shot twice in the chest during the withdrawal. His dog tags are missing. The Japanese often collect American dog tags as trophies. The 2nd team finds 3 more bodies at 8:20. These Marines were captured alive, then executed. Their hands are tied behind their backs. They have been bayoneted. Japanese forces on Saipan rarely take prisoners. The Imperial Army considers surrender dishonorable and extends that contempt to enemy soldiers who are captured. But these 3 Marines did not surrender. They were wounded, captured, and murdered. By 10 o'clock, search teams have located 6 of the missing Marines alive. That brings the count to 29 men accounted for. 13 are still missing. 11:15, one search team makes radio contact. They have found 5 more Marines hiding in a cave system approximately 1 mile behind Japanese lines. The Marines are alive but pinned down by enemy patrols. They cannot move without being detected. Tchaikovsky faces another decision. He can request artillery support to create a diversion, but artillery fire will alert the Japanese to American interest in that location, potentially leading to increased patrols. Or he can send a rescue team immediately, relying on stealth and speed. He chooses speed. He assembles a 6-man rescue team and moves out at 11:47. They reach the cave system at 12:33. The 5 trapped Marines are exhausted and dehydrated but uninjured. They spent the night listening to Japanese patrols pass within yards of their hiding position. One Marine has malaria and is running a fever of 103 degrees. Another has dysentery and can barely walk. The extraction requires covering 1 mile through Japanese-controlled territory in broad daylight. Standard tactics call for moving in darkness, but the trapped Marines cannot survive another 12 hours. Without medical attention, Tchaikovsky decides to move immediately and rely on speed rather than concealment. The combined group of Marines begins moving at 1:05. They make it 400 yards before encountering a Japanese patrol, 20 enemy soldiers in standard search formation. The Marines have 2 choices: hide and hope the patrol passes, or ambush the patrol and eliminate the threat. Hiding risks discovery. Ambushing risks bringing more Japanese troops to investigate gunfire. Tchaikovsky chooses ambush. The element of surprise will give the Marines a brief advantage. If they can eliminate the entire patrol in 30 seconds before anyone can fire a shot or radio for help, they might escape undetected. The Marines position themselves in a classic L-shaped ambush formation. The Japanese walk directly into the kill zone at 1:23. Tchaikovsky gives the signal. 11 Marines open fire simultaneously. The Japanese patrol is destroyed in 7 seconds. 20 enemy soldiers killed, no survivors. No radio transmissions, but the gunfire has been heard for at least half a mile. Japanese units throughout the area are converging on this location within minutes. The Marines move at a full run, abandoning stealth for speed. Behind them, Japanese voices shout commands. Whistles blow. Tchaikovsky estimates they have maybe 5 minutes before Japanese forces surround them. The nearest Marine defensive position is 800 yards away across open ground. Running that distance while carrying 2 sick Marines will take at least 12 minutes. The mathematics are clear. The Japanese will catch them before they reach safety. At 1:29, the Marines encounter an unexpected problem. The terrain ahead drops into a steep ravine, 40 feet deep with near vertical sides. Going around will add 15 minutes. Going down and back up will slow them significantly. But staying on the ridge means certain contact with pursuing Japanese forces. Tchaikovsky chooses the ravine. The Marines descend the slope, half sliding and half climbing, supporting the 2 sick men between them. They reach the bottom at 1:33. Japanese soldiers appear on the ridge. Above them, 60 seconds later, the Japanese open fire from elevated positions, shooting down into the ravine. Bullets ricochet off rocks. 1 Marine is hit in the leg. Another takes shrapnel from a grenade. The Marines return fire while continuing to move, using boulders and vegetation for cover. The ravine channels them in one direction, eliminating tactical options. They can only move forward and hope to reach the far end before the Japanese descend and engage them at close. Ranged out at 1:38, they spot the problem. The ravine ends in a box canyon. No exit. The Marines are trapped. Japanese soldiers begin descending into the ravine from multiple points, moving to surround the trapped Americans. Tchaikovsky counts at least 40 enemy soldiers visible, with more arriving every minute. His 11 Marines have maybe 200 rounds of ammunition total. 2 sick Marines cannot fight effectively. That leaves 9 combative effective men against a force that is growing rapidly. Artillery support is impossible because the Marines are too close to Japanese positions. Airstrikes cannot be called in without risking friendly fire. The 40 thieves are on their own, and then Tchaikovsky notices something the Japanese have missed. The box canyon's rear wall is not solid rock. Vegetation growing at the base suggests water seepage, which means a crack or fissure in the stone. He sends 2 Marines to investigate while the rest establish defensive positions. The 2 Marines report back at 1:44. There is a narrow opening behind the vegetation, barely wide enough for a man to squeeze through. Beyond the opening, the fissure widens into a passageway that appears to lead upward through the rock. The Marines begin moving through the opening one at a time, pushing the 2 sick men through first. The passage is tight enough that men have to remove their packs and drag them behind. It is completely dark inside. They move by touch, following the Marine ahead. Behind them, they can hear Japanese soldiers entering the box canyon, calling to each other as they search for the Americans who have seemingly disappeared. The passage emerges onto the opposite side of the ridge at 2:07. 400 yards from where they entered, the Marines find themselves behind Japanese lines, but with the enemy focused on searching the ravine below. They move quickly toward Marine positions. They approach friendly lines using proper recognition, signals, and cross into American-held territory at 2:23. All 11 Marines reach safety. The 2 sick men are immediately evacuated to medical stations. That brings the total count to 34 Marines accounted for. 8 remain missing. Over the following hours, 3 more are found alive. 2 more bodies are discovered. That leaves 3 Marines still unaccounted for by nightfall. They are officially listed as missing in action. The 40 thieves have lost at least 6 men killed in their first 48 hours on site. Another 3 are missing and presumed dead. That represents a 22% casualty rate. But despite the losses, the platoon has accomplished its mission. They have identified over 200 Japanese positions, called in coordinates that destroyed dozens of enemy fortifications, prevented a tank from reaching the regimental command post, provided critical intelligence on enemy movements. At 1800 hours, Colonel Risley sends a message to Tech. The 40 thieves will have 1 night to rest, resupply, and integrate replacements. At dawn, they will return to the jungle. This time their mission will take them even deeper behind enemy lines. The Japanese garrison on Saipan still numbers approximately 29,000 troops. The 40 thieves now number 37 men. At 0530 hours on June 17th, they move out from Marine lines in complete darkness. Their objective is a ridge system 3 miles inland that intelligence believes contains Japanese artillery positions. Those guns have been shelling American positions continuously for 2 days. Aerial reconnaissance cannot locate them because the Japanese have camouflaged them inside caves. Only ground reconnaissance can find them. The platoon moves in complete silence. They cover the first mile in 47 minutes without encountering Japanese patrols. The second mile takes longer as terrain becomes difficult. They reach the target ridge system at 0815 hours and begin systematic reconnaissance. The ridge stretches for approximately 2 miles and rises 600 feet above surrounding jungle. Japanese positions are everywhere. Tchaikovsky counts 8 cave entrances, large enough to hide artillery pieces. The caves are connected by tunnels that allow the Japanese to move guns between positions, fire several rounds, then relocate before American counterfire can respond. Finding the guns is only part of the mission. The 40 thieves also need to map the tunnel system so Marine assault units will know how to attack when they reach this area. Mapping the tunnels requires entering them at 0940 hours. Corporal Roscoe Mullins and Private Strombo volunteer to penetrate the cave system while the rest of the platoon provides security outside. The 2 Marines enter the largest cave opening and move into darkness, using small flashlights shielded to prevent light from being visible more than a few feet away. The cave extends 200 feet into the ridge before branching into multiple passages. They can hear Japanese voices echoing from somewhere deeper in the system. Water drips from the ceiling. The air smells of gunpowder and human waste. They find the first artillery piece at 10:12 hours, a Type 91,105mm howitzer, positioned 30 feet inside a side passage. Ammunition stored in recesses carved into the rock walls. The gun crew is absent, probably sleeping in a different section. Mullins and Strombo mark the location on their map and continue deeper. They discover 2 more guns in the next 40 minutes, plus a command post. Ammunition magazine containing approximately 2,000 rounds. Sleeping quarters for at least 60 soldiers. At 11:03 hours, they hear Japanese soldiers approaching. Mullins and Strombo have maybe 15 seconds to find concealment. They press themselves into a small alcove and remain motionless as a dozen enemy soldiers walk past, conversing in Japanese. The soldiers pass within 3 feet without detecting the Americans. After the patrol moves on, the 2 Marines decide to exit. They have gathered enough intelligence. Staying longer risks capture. They emerge at 11:27 hours and rejoin the platoon. Tchaikovsky examines their map. The tunnel system connects all 8 cave entrances and contains at least 6 artillery pieces, possibly more. Standard Marine assault tactics will fail against this position. Infantry cannot storm the caves because machine guns cover every entrance. Artillery fire will be ineffective because the caves are too deep. The only solution is to seal the entrances, trapping the Japanese inside, then systematically destroy each sealed position with them. But that requires Marine engineers with explosives, and those units are still days away from reaching this area. At 12:15 hours, the platoon begins moving toward their secondary objective, the town of Saipan's administrative capital before the war. Marine intelligence wants to know if Japanese forces are defending the town, or if they have withdrawn to more defensible positions. Inland, reaching Garapan requires crossing 4 miles of enemy-controlled territory in broad daylight, but the 40 thieves have successfully operated undetected for over 30 hours. Tchaikovsky believes they can complete one more reconnaissance mission before withdrawing. They approach Garapan from the east at 15:40 hours. The town has been heavily bombed and shelled. Most buildings are destroyed or damaged, but the 40 thieves can see Japanese soldiers moving through the ruins, indicating the enemy still maintains a presence. Tchaikovsky needs closer reconnaissance to determine enemy strength and positions. At 16:05 hours, he makes a decision that will become legendary in Marine Corps history. 5 Marines will enter Garapan in broad daylight, conduct reconnaissance, and return with intelligence. The mission is virtually suicidal, but it is also exactly the kind of operation the 40 thieves were created to perform. Tchaikovsky selects for Marines Mullins, Corporal Private Don Evans. 5 men total, including himself. They remove all equipment that might make noise. They carry only rifles, knives, sidearms. At 16:23 hours, they move toward Garapan's eastern edge. The ruins provide excellent cover, but also conceal Japanese positions. Every destroyed building could hide enemy soldiers. Every pile of rubble could be a defensive position. They enter the town at 16:41 hours, moving through back streets and staying in shadows. Japanese soldiers are everywhere. The Marines count at least 200 enemy troops visible in the town center, with probably hundreds more in surrounding buildings. The Japanese are not defending Garapan as a fortified position. They are using it as a staging area for counterattacks. The distinction is important. Marine commanders planning to assault Garapan need to know they will face mobile enemy units rather than fixed fortifications. At 17:08 hours, Irazi spots something unexpected. 5 bicycles leaning against a partially destroyed building. Japanese military bicycles, the type officers use for transportation between positions. An idea forms immediately. 5 bicycles. 5 Marines. They can conduct reconnaissance while riding through town like Japanese soldiers, moving between positions. In the chaos of 5 men on bicycles will attract less attention than 5 men on foot trying to hide. The plan is audacious and completely violates standard reconnaissance procedures. Tchaikovsky approves it instantly. Marines take the bicycles and begin Riding through Garapan at 17-15 hours, they move casually, not trying to hide. Just 5 soldiers on bicycles navigating through ruins. Japanese troops ignore them. Some wave, others shout greetings in Japanese that the Marines do not understand but acknowledge with hand gestures. For 43 minutes, the 40 thieves ride through the enemy capital, mapping positions, counting troops, identifying supply dumps. They pass within yards of Japanese officers who never suspect the Americans riding bicycles are enemy. Reconnaissance. At 17:58 hours, they complete their circuit and exit the town heading north. They continue riding the bicycles for another mile before abandoning them and moving back into the jungle. The reconnaissance has provided detailed intelligence on enemy dispositions throughout. Marine commanders will now know exactly where Japanese forces are concentrated when they eventually assault the town. The 40 thieves reach Marine lines at 19:32 hours. They have been behind enemy lines for 14 hours and have penetrated deeper into Japanese territory than any other American unit. Over the next 3 weeks, the 40 thieves continue similar missions. They map enemy positions throughout Saipan's interior, call in coordinates for artillery strikes, ambush Japanese patrols, provide intelligence that saves countless Marine lives. They witness Japanese atrocities. Civilians forced to jump from cliffs rather than surrender, wounded Marines used as bait for ambushes, prisoners executed. The platoon operates in small teams, sometimes for days without contact with Marine units. They suffer from malaria, dysentery, heat exhaustion, tropical diseases. They run out of food and steal from Japanese supply dumps. They run out of water and drink from contaminated streams. By July 9, when Saipan is declared secure, the 40 thieves have lost 12 men killed and 9 wounded. That represents a 56% casualty rate, below the 73% average for scout sniper units, but still devastating. The survivors are physically and mentally exhausted. Most have lost 30 to 40 pounds. Several have malaria fevers. All have seen things that will haunt them for the rest of their lives, but they have accomplished their mission. Marine commanders estimate the 40 thieves' reconnaissance work reduced overall Marine casualties by at least 15%, potentially saving 2,000 lives. The platoon will go on to fight at Tinian in July 1944, then return to Saipan for mopping up operations. After the war, most members struggle with what will later be recognized as post-traumatic stress disorder. Many have recurring nightmares. Some turn to alcohol. Several cannot maintain civilian employment or personal relationships. The psychological cost of their service is never officially recognized or treated. Frank Tuchowski returns to civilian life and becomes mayor of Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin. He never speaks about the war. His son Joseph only learns about the 40 thieves after finding his father's foot. Following his death in 2011, the story of the platoon that changed Marine Corps tactics remains largely unknown for 66 years. The Scout Sniper Platoon of the 6th Marine Regiment was one of the first elite special operations units in American military history. Their tactics, deep reconnaissance, silent killing, independent operations behind enemy lines would influence the development of modern special forces units, including Navy SEALs and Marine Force reconnaissance. They proved it small. Highly trained units could accomplish missions that entire battalions could not. 40 men recruited from Briggs and Punishment details became one of the most effective combat units in the Pacific War. The Marines who called them criminals were wrong. They were warriors. And in the jungles of Saipan, they wrote the doctrine that special operations forces still follow today.